The most hotly contested election in our nation's history did not take place in the year 2000, or even 2020. It took place in 1876. The Civil War ended in 1865, but 11 years after Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox, America was on the verge of another outbreak of violence between the North and the South. A deal was made to preserve the nation. The price? The end of Reconstruction and the preservation of white supremacy. In the decades following the Civil War, the United States emerged as an industrial giant. Railroads crisscrossed the country. Steel bridges connected cities. Skyscrapers and Ferris wheels reached for the heavens. Electrical grids powered homes and businesses. Oil refineries fueled nationwide progress. The telephone and typewriter transformed communication. By the end of the century, we had coffee pots, escalators, elevators, cars, chewing gum, paper clips, and even Jell-O. New amendments to the Constitution created a land of promise and opportunity for many. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. The 14th Amendment conferred citizenship on all persons born or naturalized in the United States, making formerly enslaved black people U.S. citizens. And the 15th Amendment made unconstitutional the use of race to prevent black men from voting. Reconstruction, the effort to restore southern states to the Union and incorporate 4 million newly freed American citizens into the United States, was working. Yet, the U.S. Army continued to occupy the South, to enforce compliance with federal law. The country was united, albeit tenuously. In 1876, a centennial exposition in Philadelphia celebrated the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was also an election year. On June 17, 1876, the Republicans, the party that guided the Union to victory in the Civil War, nominated Rutherford B. Hayes for president and William A. Wheeler for vice president. 9 days later, the Democrats, then the party of racism and white supremacy, nominated Samuel J. Tilden and Thomas A. Hendricks. As returns came in on the evening of November 7th, the nation held its breath. In the early count, Tilden appeared to have the lead. The next morning, Democratic newspapers proclaimed his victory. Then, on November 9th, Republicans announced a Hayes win. But this game was just beginning. Tilden won the popular vote, but results in 3 states were in dispute: Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana. Neither side would concede. The nation was thrown into chaos. The Florida governor reported that a special train sent out to get returns had been Ku Kluxed and thrown from the track. Amid reports of fraud and armed threats to black voters, then President Grant, the former commander of the Union Army, sent troops to the capitals of all 3 disputed states. Just 11 years after the Civil War, it looked like it could start all over again. Congress passed an act authorizing a commission to decide the winner of the 1876 presidential election. The bipartisan commission voted to give the electoral votes of the disputed states to the Republican, Hayes. In exchange, Democrats got something they wanted. Hayes agreed to withdraw Union troops from the South. With that assurance, the deal went through, beginning the end of Reconstruction. So, despite winning the popular vote, Tilden lost the election, with 184 electoral votes to Hayes's 185. And on March 2nd, 1877, almost 4 months after Election Day, Rutherford B. Hayes became the 19th President of the United States. President Hayes made good on his promise to withdraw the troops from the South. He kept the Union together at the expense of the rights of black Americans. The criminal legal system quickly became a tool to control black people. By 1870, the prison population of Alabama went from 90% white to over 80% black. By 1880, elected officials in more than a third of U.S. states enacted felony disenfranchisement laws, taking the vote away from people convicted of crimes. Poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and literacy tests were employed to keep black men from voting. When that wasn't enough, white supremacists used violence and even murder to prevent black men from going to the polls. Elected officials in states across the South passed Jim Crow laws, enforcing segregation in virtually every aspect of American life. The election of 1876 ended with a compromise that ensured the continuation of racism and racist violence in our nation's culture and politics that has lasted to this day.